Hello folks, and welcome to the weekend warm-up here in Portimao with me, Will Buxton, him, Lawrence Barretto, and it is great to be back at a Grand Prix track.
Oh, it's brilliant, and also a new Grand Prix track that I've never been to before. It's a spectacular venue, the weather's been blissful today. This track looks mega as well, just resurfaced. Can't wait for the cars to get out there.
Yeah, me too. I last came here in 2009
Okay.
for a GP2 race. It's such a great track, it's absolute fever. It's technical. It's tricky, it's unforgiving, unrelenting. It's actually quite similar to Mugello, one of the other new tracks on the calendar this year. And I think a lot of the drivers are really looking forward to getting out there.
Yeah, so when I was in the pen and when we were in the written media session today, all the drivers just want to get out there. A few guys have been out here, like Lewis, Alex Albon was talking about being out here as well, but not in an F1 car.
Yeah.
So for Alex, so it'll be interesting to see when we get out there how exciting it's going to be. It's going to be quite slippery. I think the track's going to be quite green, so we're going to see a lot of locking up. But I can't wait for practice, which I can't often say, Will.
Well, indeed. Well, I've not been at a track for 2 races, so...
Of course, welcome back,
fill me
Will.
in. What happened?
Of course. A lot has been happening. We had 2 Grand Prix.
Nice.
Russia was great.
Cool.
Germany was wet, so
Nice.
I bet you're devastated to have missed that race.
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't
While
have picked 2 better races, really, could
No,
I?
exactly.
Yeah.
Nice and warm while I was in my moon boots.
Cool.
So,
I did see, actually, the moon boots. Today we've got purple... are they Prince-inspired purple boots?
They weren't, but people have said they are, so
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes, they are
Okay.
Prince-inspired.
Very nice. Right, let's get on to talking about what's going on down here, because there's so much to talk about, as there always is. And we're going to start at Mercedes, who can wrap up the Constructors' World Championship this weekend if the points go their way. Astonishing. 6 races to go. They're going to wrap it all up.
They've been incredible this year, and we've said that so many years now. Their reliability, generally speaking, has been so good, and I think that's what's really helped put them in a position whereby with Ferrari struggling and Red Bull not really managing to match them, we've got this incredible possibility that they could wrap it up so early on in the year.
It really is amazing to think about it, of course. Lewis Hamilton, last time out, with his 91st Grand Prix victory, could go for 92 this weekend, having an astonishing season as well.
Yes, I think he's really happy with the way that he's driving. I think he's been super consistent. He's on this run of form whereby he's just scoring points at every single race, and I think for them that consistency is what's really helped him. He hasn't had any reliability issues like Valtteri, fortunately for him, and he's just made the most of his opportunities, and that's why he's got such a significant lead in the Drivers' Championship now.
But he doesn't have a contract for next year, and this is an astonishing thing. I was talking to Valtteri about it earlier. I said, isn't it a bit weird that you're the only one out of that triangle at the top of the team that gets all of the focus? Toto doesn't have a contract, Lewis doesn't have a contract, but you do for next year. He's like, actually, I haven't thought of it. So it is strange, though. Still no word of Lewis of what he's going to do next year. Still no word from Toto.
No.
How much longer do we think that's going to go on?
They seem quite relaxed about it, I think. Every
Yes.
time Toto talks about it, even Lewis, when I spoke to him the last race in Germany, he didn't seem that much in a rush to do it. I feel like they know it's going to happen. They're just kind of waiting to see those finer details and when they can crank it up. We saw him today. He was in the motorhome just before he started filming with Roscoe.
Yeah.
Seems relaxed. I saw him around the track in his scooter. He's loving life at the moment. I don't think he's that bothered about it. He knows it's going to happen.
Or might they be off somewhere else?
Oh, really? Well,
No, I don't know.
Why do you think?
I don't know.
Where might they be off to?
I've had a lot of time on my hands to do thinking.
What thinking has that led to?
I mean, I don't know. I've got no reason for thinking it. Why not Aston Martin?
Okay. Why is that?
Well, Toto owns some shares in Aston Martin. Good
He
mates
does.
with Lawrence Stroll. Why not?
But-
Toto, go and take that. Have a nice bit of something to do after the Mercedes. You've done everything there. Go and start a new empire somewhere else. Maybe take Lewis with you, and then have Lewis and Seb and Aston Martin.
So this
maybe
is
in
from what,
2020
22?
I don't know, maybe 22. I've got absolutely no justification for thinking that. I've just been sat at home for a month.
It is the silly season after all.
That's a very silly season. Okay, and I did ask Lewis today, is it a given that you will be at Mercedes next year? His answer, nothing's a given. So there you go. I did predict that Carlos would end up at Ferrari and Daniel would end up at McLaren.
Here we go.
Right, let's talk about Ferrari, because over the last couple of races, a brace of upgrades on the car.
Yes.
They've got more upgrades on the car this weekend. The diffuser is that last piece of the puzzle, and they've all worked. It seems great.
I think for Ferrari, in terms of the way their season's gone this year, it's been very difficult for them to, they haven't had anything to smile about. So those upgrades that they've had in the last couple of races have, like you've said, made progress. Are they going to make much progress here? Well, I asked Seb that, and he said it's not going to be a game changer. Brutal is what that is. But I think if they can keep making little steps, like Charles was talking about, making little steps, it's kind of about trying to make the best of it for the rest of this year and hopefully try and have a good start next year.
Has Seb just completely lost all love of what he's doing at Ferrari this year? Because I've got to say, from the outside looking in Germany, he just didn't look there.
So today, for the first time, I feel like he's really starting to think about life at Aston Martin now, and I don't think he's really let himself think about it. But even today, when I asked him about that, is he letting himself dream about what's coming? He kind of said, well, I kind of realise that that's going to come around now very quickly, and I have got to start thinking about it. And he hasn't said anything like that up until this point, but he's also said that he wants to leave Ferrari with dignity.
Okay.
And I think so. It's not like he's signed out completely, but he does have an eye on next year, and he's just got to get through these final few races with Ferrari, hopefully with at least a couple of strong results.
Talking about leaving somewhere with dignity, will Alex Albon be leaving Aston Martin Red Bull Racing with dignity? Will he be leaving at all? Will he be staying there? This is one of the big questions of this weekend. A driver market which has been reinvigorated, kick-started after we thought it would go relatively quiet. It's suddenly gone raucous and loud again. And a lot of that is around that second seat. And that is because in the aftermath of the German Grand Prix, when Super Sub Hulkenberg turned up, did a brilliant job, Helmut Marko came out and said, we've been talking to Nico potentially about filling in for Alex Albon for the weekend because he had a positive, negative, whatever test, ended up racing. And also, looking at 2021, yes, Nico is on our mind for our second seat alongside Max Verstappen. An indication from Helmut Marko that not only is Alex Albon's seat not safe, but they are now looking outside of the Red Bull driver programme for a potential replacement.
Well, to add more fuel to that fire, I think Checo is also having talks with them as well.
He has, we know he has,
So I think that from that point of view, Red Bull are looking outside of the family. The question is, will they actually go ahead and take someone and actually do the deal? And I'm not so sure they are. At the moment, it seems that Red Bull are going to give Alex time. Like, they've given him time all year, and I think that we're going to be a few races into the back end of this year before we find out the result at Red Bull. They want to give him as many opportunities as he can to deliver what they believe he can do. I think it helps that the Red Bull is really improving at the moment. And that's hopefully going to give him a more stable car, maybe give him some more confidence. Because I think at the moment, Max is more comfortable dealing with a car that isn't predictable.
But so how have we got to a point where the Red Bulls are all so unpredictable? Why is it that three talented drivers like Gasly, Kvyat and Albon, who aren't idiots, can't get to grips with a Red Bull? Is it that the Red Bull is so attuned to what Max Verstappen needs out of a car that actually Max's desires and needs are so specific that three other very, very tidy racers can't get on top of it? Is it that? Is it just that Max is that good that he's making the other three look like they're not as good as we think they are?
I would lean more towards what you said, towards the latter, that he's that talented and he's just able to pull more out of the car. Gunnar Steiner was talking today generally about drivers, and he said that one thing that Max might do at that team is make it so difficult for a young driver to deliver on his promise, because the pressure is so high that I'm not saying these aren't talented drivers, they just aren't in a position where they can really spread their wings, and I think that's what's happened to a lot of drivers at Red Bull.
Or maybe take the pressure off if Checo's turning up with his own sponsors, his own money. He's not under that Red Bull sword of, as we discussed before, the sort of Damocles of, don't say a negative thing about the car, don't say a negative thing about the team, or you're off. Or a Hulkenberg last chance saloon, give it everything. Could be fascinating. Before we move on from Red Bull, obviously we need to talk about the fact they've said next year's car will be very much a development of this, an RB16B, and also they want to see an engine freeze going forward because they want to buy IP from Honda so that they can just freeze that engine and still have that Honda power unit in the back of their car for next year.
Yeah, they've got a lot of decisions to make, Red Bull, and pretty quickly, to be honest. They've got to make a formal request to Honda about that IP, because at the moment,
next year, I mean 22, obviously.
Yes, for 2022. They've got to make that request, and they haven't as yet, as I understand it. But they need to be making these decisions, and quick. And I think that for Red Bull, they've got the driver situation, they've got the engine situation, they've got a car that is struggling. It's tough times for Christian Horner and Helmut Marko
yeah,
right now.
Indeed, and the Renault engines might come into play with this, and there's some talk about driver changes, which we'll talk about in a moment. Let's talk about McLaren as we're down here at the moment. Upgrade on that car that we've seen coming in over the last couple of race weekends. Carlos wasn't happy with it in Germany, but still pulled out a good result, despite the fact he wasn't happy with the car.
I think it's impressive that we're talking about 5th place for Carlos and he's not happy.
Yeah.
I think that shows how far he's really come, and also the McLaren have come in terms of the results that they're pursuing. I think that he outperformed the car, just as Lando has done many times this year. I think when they get in good results, it's just they're executing the race perfectly. I think that these next few races are going to be challenging for them, and they know that because Renault are coming and Racing Point are coming.
Well, here's the thing, Racing Point third in the Constructors at the moment on 120, then it is McLaren on 116, then Renault on 114. It's so close and every point counts at the moment, and Renault are the coming team. They have been quick. I think they really got it all together in Silverstone, and since that time they've been the ones really with the target on them, and the podium last time out shows that they're serious.
So when I talked to Cyril about where Renault are at the moment, I said, you're the 3rd best team. He goes, no, we're the 2nd best team in terms of performance of late. That's super confidence though, isn't it, I think, from Cyril, and that's an about turn from where Renault have been in recent years. They seem to have found a sweet spot, I think helped hugely by Daniel Ricciardo to unlock the potential of that car, and they are making the most of it. And
Daniel has said the team aren't holding anything back from him. They're still working very much together, and they're, Carlos obviously is starting to be just edged out a little bit, it feels, at McLaren. But Daniel still working with the team and now working together in a triangle, a triumvirate of racers with Ocon and now with Fernando Alonso, who had a filming day in the car where he definitely didn't get a really good feel for it and start to be able to provide feedback on the car. But yeah, Fernando back in an F1 car and providing feedback to the team about the direction that he wants it to go in for next year.
It's worked out so beautifully for Fernando, isn't it? The way that Renault are improving ahead of their transformation to Alpine next year, he's going to come in with a car that really is going to give him an opportunity to challenge. And the fact that he's got involved so early on, and he's spending time doing a filming day and spending so much time at the factory, and is probably going to be testing old cars as well to try and get into shape, just shows how hungry he is to come back and deliver some strong results. It's immensely exciting.
Right, crazy rumour of the week. Pierre Gasly will replace Esteban Ocon next year as part of some Renault engine deal replacing Honda, Alfa. I don't know.
I mean, as you said it was getting confusing, wasn't it?
I know.
I think that
it's going to get worse.
Let's see when we get down there.
But yeah.
I think that Pierre Gasly and Renault at some point in the future does make sense.
Okay.
I think that it's too early now because I do still think they're eggs in the Ocon basket. And I think that Ocon has done a good job this year, and he's next to a very talented driver in Daniel Ricciardo, and obviously it's very hard to perform to his level, but I think he's done a strong run of races. He's had the worst reliability, I think, as well this year, so let's take that into consideration. And it's still early days, it's still only his 2nd year at the team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We move on now to Racing Point, who have been the focus of a lot of stories this year for the wrong reasons. Again today, Lance Stroll, it's transpired, did have COVID when he went home from the German Grand Prix, but was only found to have had it when he did a test after getting home from the German Grand Prix. It seems that just the procedure, the way it all worked out, was the way that it was. Nothing sort of malicious in terms of its intent anyway.
No, I think it's been very difficult for Racing Point for the last couple of months, hasn't it, really? It's been one story after the other. Myself now did a media session with print media this morning on Zoom, and he faced some really tough questions because they've obviously put out a timeline. There have been some questions about how that timeline actually did unfold. Lance is here, which is great news, and he seems better, which is great news, and hopefully he'll be racing this weekend. And protocols are going to be tightened, I think, just to ensure that the system works, because that's, at the end of the day, all anyone really wants is for Formula 1 to be able to continue and to everyone to feel safe in the knowledge we can go about our jobs.
Nico Hülkenberg is here this weekend on standby for the team. Actually, a number of teams starting to bring standbys along to the track with them rather than leaving them at home. I saw Sebastian Buemi in the track earlier today in Red Bull kit, so that's interesting.
It makes sense though, doesn't it, to have someone here just so that they can jump in. You don't want a driver running coming in, as Nico Hulkenberg had to do, stressing about the rapid test. You want someone here relaxed. Hopefully they can crack on as soon as they are needed, if required.
Now, we talk about Racing Point. We have to talk about Sergio Perez and where he ends up next year. We've already talked about the potential that he has to wind up at Red Bull. We also have to talk about the fact that as we come down to these final three teams, there exists a potential for Sergio Perez at Alfa Romeo, at Haas, at Williams. Let's start with Alfa Romeo. Kimi today, I said, how's the negotiations going? He said, perfect. And I said, oh, okay. Well, can you? And he's just like, well, I'm not, it's a bit uncertain. And I said, so it's uncertainly perfect. And he was just, he's Kimi being Kimi. It looks like he's going to be here again next year.
Yes.
Antonio Giovinazzi, less certain. He says it's all in the hands of Ferrari, and right now, Ferrari's eyes appear to have heart-shaped emojis in them for Mick Schumacher, Callum Ilott, and Schwartzman.
I think at the moment that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for Ferrari to decide what they want to do with their junior drivers next year. They're in a beautiful position where they've got 3 drivers in the top 5 in F2. One of them's definitely going to win the championship at this rate.
Yep.
And I think that they want to make sure that the driver that they put in, either a Haas or an Alfa Romeo, and maybe both, is the driver that they feel can make progress going forward.
Now we talk about drivers, we talk about the driver market, we talk about Haas, of course. Big news that came out this morning is that neither Romain Grosjean nor Kevin Magnussen will be back with the team for 2021. I think it's fair to say we'd seen the writing on the wall that perhaps one driver would be leaving the team. To have both leave surprised even the drivers.
Yes, I mean we could have just, oh goodness, it's gone. Disappointed.
We're not allowed to sort of do the bubble thing.
No, otherwise we could have just asked.
I deliberately ignored him because I thought he's had a hard enough day as it is.
Well, he's been busy, shall we say, trying to explain what's happened over here. They've decided to go for youth, essentially. They've let Romain and Kevin.
Is that confirmed that they're definitely going to go for 2 rookies?
No, that's just what I believe is going to be the case.
Okay, but they have let go 2 very experienced drivers, 2 podium finishers in Formula 1, 2 guys who had so much potential, so much promise, brilliant junior careers. Romain and Kevin are not slouches, they're not idiots. On their day, phenomenal racing drivers. And I think it's going to be a real loss that we lose them from Formula 1.
So you've made a real case there for why those guys should be in Formula 1. Very experienced racers, they would do a fantastic job. But I think Haas, their model now is to try and make a step forward from where they are, currently 9th in the Constructors' Championship, and hope that in going forward they can make some big steps, and that big step is going to require big change. These guys haven't changed much. Kevin and Romain have been here for 4 years, Romain's been here for 5. So by actually changing tact and maybe going for youth and taking some significant financial backing, they can pump that money into the team and improve the car.
Now both drivers have picked up on that it's a financial consideration why they believe they've been ousted from the team. Do we see young, rich drivers coming in and taking their space? And if so, what kind of a consideration is that? You talk about change at the team in the driver lineup. We've never seen a change from the team in terms of its engineering lineup, in terms of its design lineup. Is that not where you would focus first, rather than getting rid of 2 experienced, dependable drivers?
I suppose to make one thing happen, you need to do something else elsewhere, and by bringing the funding in, you can then make this engineering change. With the new rules coming in, there's probably going to be very good quality staff have to let go so that some of the bigger teams can bring their numbers down. They're going to be suddenly available to the likes of Haas, to the smaller teams down here.
But do you want to be putting that kind of a responsibility to bring forward the development of a brand new car in the hands of 2 rookies?
No, it's a risky strategy. There's no doubt about it.
Risky.
But they at least will have next year in a car that they know is going to be difficult. The expectation will be reduced.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they're going to make a decision, they may as well go big.
That is if they bring in 2 rookies, or maybe they might plump for Sergio Perez and Nico Hulkenberg, the dream team at Haas. I think that would be pretty fever. Anyway, we are going to finish by talking about Williams, because we're talking about the driver rumours, and suddenly today, well, this week, out of seemingly nowhere, the rumour that either George Russell or Nicholas Latifi may not be safe for next year. They both seem to think today they are safe. They have the backing of the new owners. But again, Sergio Perez's name linked with a seat at Williams in 2021. Realistic, not?
So, as I understand it, there have actually been discussions between Checo and
Now that's interesting, because when we discussed it this morning, you were like, rubbish, not going to happen, not in a million years.
That is true.
But
yes.
yeah.
But then we spent the day in an F1 paddock.
And everything changed.
And everything has changed. I think the reality is that George Russell probably is going to stay. But I think the very fact that this is a potential possibility going forward is very, very interesting. I guess the question for Checo is, does he want what is going to be a medium to long-term project here? Does he want that? I don't know.
Wow, I asked him this afternoon, and I said, do you want a car that you can immediately get a podium, fight for wins in, or do you want a long-term project? And he said, long-term project.
He wants to be an F1, doesn't he? I think that's the important thing. So it's whether he can find a project that he's happy with, that he can spend the next 4 to 5 years there.
It's a fascinating
Is it here?
Is it? I mean, that's the question. Is it here? Might it be Haas?
I don't think it's going to be Haas. I'm going to put it out there that I don't think it's going to be Haas.
One thing that was interesting with Sergio today, that he said that he'd really enjoyed having Nico as his teammate again last weekend, and he really hoped that Nico would be in Formula One next year as well.
It would be the dream team, genuinely. There'd be such a formidable partnership. I just can't see it happening, just in the way that you can see the blocks are starting to fall at the moment.
It's a shame, man. That would be a great team. Be a great line. But here's the thing, someone's going to miss out. Well, no matter what happens next year, there aren't enough seats in the sport to have the most talented drivers from Formula 2. A Mick Schumacher, a Schwartzman, an Eilert, a Yuki Tsunoda, who we haven't even mentioned, who got his seat fitting over at Alfa Tauri during the week. To have Sergio Perez, Nico Hülkenberg, George Russell, to have all of these guys all together, it's physically impossible until we have 11, 12 teams in the sport.
No, exactly, and I don't think in the near future, unfortunately, we're going to have more teams coming in. I think it's hugely exciting that we're going to get some young talent in. The fact that Yuki Tsunoda might make it in next year, I think it's actually looking very, very, very good for him to make it in next year, even though Honda are leaving. I think it's great that we're going to get some youngsters like Mick Schumacher getting a chance as well. I do feel bad for those experienced drivers, and Nico Hülkenberg. Checo could miss out. He could not be in Formula 1 next year. I think it's a real shame that we're going to lose some real talented drivers, but unfortunately that's just the way that Formula 1 works. It's such a competitive environment.
It's getting brass monkey, so I think it's time to go. It's cold when the sun goes down,
It's suddenly got very dark as well.
Very dark and very cold. Anyway, that is pretty much it. We have to remind you to listen and watch Paddock Pass and do all of that thing, and obviously to tune into everything over the course of the weekend on your F1 TV and all your other digital streams. For now, from Portimao, have you got anything else you want to finish with?
No, I think that's a pretty good place to leave it.
Great stuff, Lawrence. Thanks for tuning in. He's been Lawrence, I've been Will, and we'll see you over the weekend. See you later, folks.